start on my left and probably let Susan MASILA introduce herself, what she does, and how she's contributing to the issues of sports and talent development. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Luke. As you've heard, my name is Susan MASILA. I work for Special Olympics Kenya as the National Director. I've been with Special Olympics for 12 years. I started as a volunteer coach. I went through the ranks up to the level of the National Director. Special Olympics is a sports organization that offers sports activities and social change activities for persons with intellectual disabilities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susan. And I'll cross to my right and introduce Winston, who will also tell us what he does with his organization.
Thank you so much. My name is Winston Shivachi. I work as a program director for Sport Institute. Sport Institute is an organization that we look at different issues of sports, culture, heritage. How do we are able to come up with programs and initiatives so that we can be able to put them into implementation, looking at our youths, the areas that they can be able to come in and be able to be productive in life, the society, and many other things that we can bring together. Sports with agriculture, sports with film, the way we are doing it today, and many other things that can bring the society together and bring us together as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Winston. Sorry I called you Winston. It's actually Winestone. I didn't see that. Thank you very much. Now, Susan, let me just cross over to you. And as I told you, sports, and I'll just say talent development, as we were discussing at the back. Persons with disabilities, as they grow up, they experience a lot of stigma and discrimination in their life. From your experience, and you're just saying that you're dealing with this, children who have intellectual disability. And in most cases, this is one of the disabilities that is actually, I would say, not given much attention as opposed to other set of disabilities. I'm saying that because I'm actually also in the area. So what is the importance, and how does someone, first of all, identify the talent? At what age will you also recommend for actually a child who has intellectual disability and they would want to gauge or to engage themselves in the issues of sport? At what age do you think it would be appropriate to bring these kids on board?
Thank you, Luke, for your question. Before I even go to the age, scientists have proven that children play even when they're in their mother's womb. So play is something we are born with. But you will find for children who are born with certain disabilities, they don't, in their early childhood, many times they are not able to participate in the normal play that children have to, because play is part of development. So even before they're introduced to sports, they've not been able to participate in play activities that will give them the foundational skills they will need to play sports. And maybe most of the challenges in early childhood would be because of some of them may experience delayed milestones in some of these, in their development. So for example, if a child is supposed to roll, sit at a certain age, those with disabilities, sometimes they will attain that milestone later. And if you can't move, you can't play. So you will find while typical children are playing outside, those with disabilities still are yet to start the play outside. So that's one of the biggest challenges in early childhood. Then other than the physiological and anatomical challenges that accompany the disability, there's also the issue of attitudes. Because this child already is perceived as different. So the other children will not want to interact with them or to bring them into their play. They may not be able to ask, can I play with you? Because already they've been perceived as different and nobody wants to listen to them. So that also contributes that they are not able to start play as early as possible, as early as it's ideal. Then also on the other hand, because they are perceived to be special, the families or the caregivers might also be overprotective. So they think, since my child, for example, has not attained balance, or they are not able to walk straight, or they are not able to, their gait is not this way, if they go to play, they are going to get injured. So there's that protection again, whilst probably that play will enhance that development faster, because studies have shown that if you participate in play activities, then your body will develop. So those are some of the challenges they experience, and that's why you will see persons with disabilities that will enter in sports at a very later age as compared to typical children. In terms of age, there is no ideal age. The earlier the better. Just like the way a typical child grows, I said they start playing from their mother's womb. So if you were to say age, then that would be the appropriate age. But because of the challenges that accompany them, once they are born, they are not able to start sports as early as possible. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susan. And I'll just cross over to Wineston. She's just said that children, scientists say that children start playing even in the womb. In your own estimation, and I've seen what your organization do, the issue of supporting ideas initiatives that strengthen lives of people in delivering, managing their space, talent, and livelihood. Do you also identify them in the womb?
Maybe I would say the children we've dealt with in academies, they start from the age of 8. Yeah, and we've partnered with other academies in Kenya, and so that we can be able to train these kids to start knowing the sports early enough. Because I remember in our old age, it was just education. Our parents did not allow us to play maybe different games, but today I'm sure that many different schools and even parents are giving their children ability and chance to play, and they're sending them to academies to be able to get ideas on football, on any other sport. So I believe child development starts well with the sports, and it's a good idea, and it does well as they grow to become mature, to be able to advance in their careers and talents.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, if I add to what Susan had actually alluded to, then I'll put the issue of barriers that children, whether with disability or without disability, have. And I will stick to the issue of attitudinal barriers, whereby parents for a very long time had not appreciated the fact that children actually spot pace. So how are you, Wineston, how are you able to navigate those barriers to convince children that it's not a matter of just going to school, study the formal way and become a doctor or become a lawyer, but actually you can also pursue sport. And this, if you look at these, the age you just told us, is at a very, very early age of around 8 years. So how have you navigated those attitudinal barriers?
What we do, we involve all the parties, the parents and the teachers. We go to their school and we go to their parents and talk to them that as long as your children are engaging in education, which is good in life, the key to life, but also sports can be able to be mixed so that they can be able to pursue them collectively. Because you'll find that there are other kids who may not be doing well in education, but they're so much talented in sports. So how can we develop them, not to send away from the sports, but be able to put them together with others so that they can be able to learn together and to know that I'm talented in sports and I can pursue this thing and can be a good thing for my life. Yeah.
Susan,
Mm-hmm.
children with disability, and there is this aspect of special kids, special children. My child is special. How are you able to navigate the speciality that, in fact, the parents become the biggest barrier now to their children being involved even with the other children out there because of this notion of the tag of special children? How are you able to navigate that?
Sometimes I think the parents are overprotective because they don't know. So the first strategy is information. They say knowledge is power. So once you educate the parents, and you don't just educate, but you also invite them to see what other children who maybe now they are adults, but they were children like their children, what they've achieved through sports. We have, in Special Olympics, let me give an example, we have a program called Young Athletes. Young Athletes is a program for children with and without intellectual disabilities from the ages of 2 to 7 years. Those are the formative ages. The children are still developing, and they are still not ready to participate in competitive sports. So we have that play activities where children are exposed to sports-like activities. They gain social, cognitive, and motor skills, and all the benefits of sports. And we use that program for the young parents to tell them that your child can be able to do something. For example, if the child, whilst at home, they've never been able even to like grip a cup or a spoon or something, and when we do the play activity, because we also do that play activities with the families, they are participating with their children, they can see that, oh, my child can grab a ball, my child is able to catch and throw. You know, that's a foundational sports skill. My child is able to stop a ball and kick. So that's one of the strategies we use, information, written and practical information. Then the other aspect of navigating the attitude barriers is awareness, because I compare Kenya with the developed countries, and I tell them, for Africa, I think if we had the information, some of these challenges will overcome them very quickly, because we don't have the information. Our cultures will tell us, oh, your child is like this because they were bewitched, you were cursed, and a lot of things. But when the parent is educated and told that this is, for example, this is intellectual disabilities, yes, they cannot do well in school, but they can do well in something else. That changes all that. Then we have another unique model we are using to break those attitudes, which we call unified sports, where we bring players with and without intellectual disabilities, they play together. And because they train and play and compete together, so we want those without disabilities to see that their friends or their peers with disabilities, they're also able to do something, and they can be actual team players. And that also changes the attitudes of their families, the families of those with intellectual disabilities and those without intellectual disabilities, and we become one team. So for attitudes, I think a lot of it is information and awareness, and we need to show models, like role models.
Okay, because in my dealings with persons with disabilities, I've experienced that the issue of role modeling is actually key, and is actually very important, just to ensure that we break those barriers. Because as you've just said, Winestone's kids that is developing, they will go through probably a school system, and they are together, and they'll end up being doctors or even being bankers. But to realize that as they serve, they come across children with disabilities. So as you say, the mixing of play groups for these children during their formative years is very, very important for us to grow the society. So as we progress, Susan, the government has introduced the new curriculum, which is the CBC. And the CBC is basically, if I will use the layman's language, that we are not going to use the brick and mortar in how we are going to develop our children. Before, when we are being taken to school, you are going to school either to become a doctor, lawyer, as I said before. But now CBC is going to identify the issue of the talent that you can develop. What are the fruits that you have started gaining from, or what are your prospects? I know it's at a very early implementation stage, but what excites you from this program?
The biggest excitement with the CBC curriculum is it's for us in the intellectual disability space, is it's not academic anymore. It's not theory anymore, because you will find that the current system, the 844 system, Kenya education was so academic, so theoretical, so abstract. Things that are all barriers for persons with intellectual disabilities, because their disability is more cognitive than physical. Yes. So first of all, we've moved from being assessed by grading, how much you know in mathematics, science, whatever, but you're given an opportunity to be assessed in some of your strengths. And sports is one of the ways that somebody can be assessed their progress. And they, as you said when we started, that they can even make a living out of the sports itself if they get the right direction. So I think for those in the intellectual disability world, for us that's a very, very big step, because our children now will be able to progress academically. You will find in the 844 system, very few persons with intellectual disabilities will progress to a secondary school. Because, and even now the results of KCP just came the other side the other day, and there was a big chunk of people who scored probably below 100. Those are already people who have either learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities. So when they are told they'll transition to secondary schools, are they ready to accommodate them in terms of the methodology, the teaching and everything? So the CBC now is moving away from that. Another example I'll give you, the 844, a teacher's performance is based on the mean score. So even when they want to integrate those with intellectual disabilities in the mainstream classroom, remember they will be the ones scoring the very lowest marks. And that will bring the mean score of the classroom down, and the teacher will be penalized because will be told that your class is not doing well, but it's not because they are not doing well. So that also was a disadvantage to those with intellectual disabilities. And sometimes they will be there in the class, but they are not actively involved. So the quality of education also goes down. So for us in this space, we feel like this is the ideal curriculum. So the only question is the quality and how it will be implemented.
Wow. Very, very exciting. As Winestone, you can just, from the facial expression of Susan, is that there is excitement already. Yes. As the CBC is being implemented. And it's actually an equalizer now on the side of children with disabilities. From your perspective, any early fruits that you've started to reap from this system?
I believe there are good indications, because we find that most children with disabilities, when they get to know that there's something you have for them, they get to understand themselves and they get to agree with the situation they are in. So the issue of stigma and being maybe their parents closing them indoors is not there. They want to come out and be able to give themselves and play. And this helps us because we normally help them to understand that you are part of the society. And there is a lot you can do in the society. Whether in your condition, in whatever you're going through, there is something you can do. And that makes them be happy and be motivated and to know that there's part of in the society and there's a lot they can do.
Okay. Yes. If you, Winston, I'm still on you. The issue of various disabilities and various requirements. For example, a child on a wheelchair, and there has been this debate of giving someone the right wheelchair for the right job. Because I believe that a wheelchair that is that is to be used for wheelchair basketball will not be the same wheelchair that someone will be using in class. What interventions, and maybe after Winston, Susan, you just jump into it, what are some of the interventions that you are doing to ensure that they are not meeting these wheelchairs when they are old enough, probably after high school, and they have realized that there's nothing, let me try sport, not because I developed in sport. What are the interventions that you two are doing just to ensure that it actually gets the right wheelchair for the right job?
Yeah. Actually, that's a very important question. I believe you have to give the right things first. As we said, you start with the early age, so that as they grow, they are able to see in their mind that I need to use this thing, and how can I collaborate myself and the implement I'm using and the sport. Because as you say, there is for boxing, there is for different games, those wheelchairs, and they have to know how to coordinate them and how to use them. Yes. And so this plays very good to be able to teach them in early stage and early age, to help them to understand that this is how you need to do it, this is how you need to move, the moves, and everything they need to do. So the interventions is good that if you can have people can come in to help out, get these wheelchairs and other implements and other tools that these children need to use can be good. Because find that in other areas, they may not have these things. So they're really struggling to do what others are doing, and they're really wondering, why can't I do how the others are doing it? Because they don't have these implements and these tools. So we can be able to come together as stakeholders and be able to look at ways we can be able to help these children have these tools and things that can help them in their sports. Yeah.
Susan?
Before I say something on the wheelchairs, at Special Olympics, we work with those with intellectual disabilities. So their disability is most of the time invisible because it doesn't affect the physical body. It's more cognitive. It's more the ability of the mind and the brain to process information. So for us, wheelchairs will not be such key aspect, but there are other adaptations that may be required. But having said that, now to jump in now in the general disability sports world, you will find that, as you said, each specific sports requires specific type of equipment and even age-appropriate equipment, because you can have a basketball wheelchair for an 18-year-old and you have an 8-year, your team is under 11 or under 10. So that again is not an appropriate wheelchair. So the challenge, and this brings out now the challenge that persons with disabilities will face. One, they need the specific and appropriate equipment, which is not available locally. So even if, for example, schools want to do these games, they don't even have those equipment.
Yes.
So you will find in our scenario, in our status in Kenya, probably it's only the national teams that will have maybe the national basketball team and such like things. And the other thing is, and I want to say, even when we appeal for donors or for people to come and give us this equipment, they have to have this in mind, that we are not only donating wheelchairs, because the attitude of Kenyans, and somebody mentioned, go to any during the campaigns and everybody, somebody wants to be seen like they are supporting the people, the persons with disabilities, and they just go and grab some wheelchairs and come out. And you know, even if that wheelchair is not for sports, it has to be the appropriate type of wheelchair. So I think it's an area where it's a big challenge in this country, even when we talk about the equipment. Going to my team, intellectual disabilities, we might not need those devices, but we also have other adaptations, like adapting the rules and something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, as you've said from your response, is that a wheelchair is like a prescription, a medical prescription, in which if I'm suffering from stomach upset and you give me the medicine that is supposed to treat, let me say, a headache, I might not get much assistance. So that means that we must have the right wheelchair for the right purpose, for the right person. Because if you don't have a good wheelchair, then it actually disables these people further than it would have been a correction. Good. Winston, what are the challenges so far that you have encountered in trying to use sport as a cultural unifier, let me say unifier, equalizer? What are the challenges that you've experienced in your work?
Well, with the sports, there are many challenges. I always say that sports development is not a matter of just giving someone a ball, go score a goal. There are many challenges involved. And mostly people look at challenges so much financial side. But we still have many other challenges that people put a blind eye. Things to do with hooliganism. This is something that is a challenge to sports development, because when fans go to a stadium and they start throwing stones to passers-by, destroying property, our children and youths, they learn from this, and they're like, this is the way to sort issues out. And that's the wrong way. And we have other many things to do with child abuse, because even as we handle children, we have to look at their ways. We need to be able to, the people who are coming to help out, do they understand how to handle these children? Do they have the skills and everything that you take to handle these kids? Because they are in a very part that they need to be able to get in their minds. The other thing is physical abuse. We've seen even as we work with youths, some youths will come and maybe their mind is not well connected to sports. They're trying something that is not there. So we always have to give them capacity building. That this is something I want to use it to be able to help you out in terms of correcting your behaviors, issues to do with crime, abuse of drugs, and many other things. So we do use sports to be able to look at these things. The other challenge, we would say we have things to do with mismanagement. Mm-hmm. Because sports development, it needs people who have passion for sports. Because we've seen mostly people come in terms of they have their own personal agendas. So we try to always look at this issue. How can we develop and how can we be able to give good management to sports? So that whether we have the finances or we don't have the finances, but we have the plans. So that when we get the finances, we can implement these things in a good way. So these are some of the challenges. Talk about this of integrity and corruption. So the same thing we go through developing the sports. Yes.
Susan, there is something that Wineston has just mentioned out, and for children with the intellectual disability, both boys and girls, could be actually an uphill task if the people, especially on integrity. Now, as you answer the question of challenges, I would like you just to touch on the issue of the pedophiles. How are you able to ensure, because you realize that children with disability might not sometimes be able to talk about what has happened to them. So how are you able to deal with the issue of integrity and around pedophiles as you develop these children?
Okay. I'll start with integrity, and I'll speak for Special Olympics Kenya, since I may not be able to speak on the other organizations. For Special Olympics Kenya, we've tried to have, to strengthen our leadership and governance structures such that there is accountability. And this is also driven by the fact that we as Special Olympics Kenya, we are accredited by Special Olympics International. That comes with a set of requirements that you need to fulfill. And that set of requirements is not like a one-time stop thing, then you're perpetually licensed. No, we renew our license every year. So every year you have to meet the standards. And these standards are inclusive of governance. Actually, they are more on governance and financial accountability. So that has given us that impetus to hold good governance procedures. We are governed by, our board is also, our governance is also different from other sports federations because we are governed by a board, which mostly it's not like former athletes or, people who have interest in the sports itself. This is board members who are doing other things. They have other businesses or jobs they are holding. And the process of recruiting our board members, again, they have to be vetted from Washington. Washington is where our headquarters is. So before you're allowed to sit in a Special Olympics Kenya board, they have to do a background check on you, on integrity again. Yes, but also in the board, we have 5 mandatory positions that have to be fulfilled. That's an athlete with intellectual disability who is trained and given the capacity to be a board member so they can also make decisions and be involved on behalf of the others. A parent representative, and this also ties with safeguarding because sometimes these athletes may not be able to, they may need to be supported to make decisions. And I want you to get me clear, not make decisions for them, but support them to make decisions. Yeah. So that's why we'll have a family representative, then we have an expert in intellectual disabilities, a sports expert, and a finance expert. So from the governance side, we are taken care of. Then we are also one of the very few sports federations that has a secretariat which has an office and full-time staff doing different things. So our model is more corporate than a federation's model is corporate. So that helps us to deal with the issues of governance and integrity. And we have policies. We have policies that help us deal with that. So for Special Olympics, that's the thing. Then about the pedophile safeguarding, as he said, is a big issue in sports, not only in disability, but the sports space. So what we've done for us, we have, again, safeguarding and protection policy that has set guidelines on even how to react on any case that is reported. But on the flip side, sometimes the perpetrators may be the guardians and the family members you'd want to. So that also becomes a challenge.
That becomes an issue that I think we all need from both sides. The issue of integrity and just to safeguard our children that they're in the right hands is something that we need to take care of. In your closing, Winestone, I would like just to give us a take-home in a very short, like 30 seconds, give us a take-home, and also talk of the opportunities that come with such event as Kenya International Sports Film Festival.
Thank you so much. My take is that sports is a very viable industry, that if well managed, it can be able to be very productive and even can compete with other industries, talk about agriculture and manufacturing, that even our youths can be able to get employment and be able to do a lot through sports. And from this event is a great thing because I see we can use film to be able to showcase what sports has done. And we can be able to do what we call capacity building to the public on what sports and what the challenges people go through when they get involved in sports. So I believe this is a great event, and there's a lot of prosperities going on as we look at how to develop sports, both from able and disabled people.
Thank you very much. Susan, your take home and what opportunities do you see as we look at the Kenya International Sports Film Festival?
So my take home is that persons with disabilities are our own relatives, our own friends, our own children, our own neighbors, and so they are with us. So we should stop the narrative of them and we change the narrative to us so that we can make our societies and our communities inclusive. We shouldn't think of them as something else. They are part of us. What do I see with this KISFF? For me, and I had this discussion with us, is many times programs, organization, or whatever is happening, people don't think of persons with disabilities. They will come either as an afterthought or just something to be done on the side. But the Kenya International Sports Film Festival has made taken a deliberate action to give disabilities a space. That's a message they're sending to the world that wherever we are talking about, also persons with disabilities are part and parcel of the society. It didn't come as an afterthought. It's in the forefront.
Thank you very much, participant, and I really want to congratulate or thank Winestone and Susan for being part and parcel of this discussion. And we believe that the festival is actually going to bring the issue of disabilities to the forefront with the main aim of eliminating stigma and discrimination, because that has been a very big challenge, especially for persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the panel and to the moderator. Questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your contribution and discussions. My question is that I've heard a lot of the classification of all these special groups, but I want to ask if we have any certifications that these athletes acquire, the certificates they acquire. Do they score any grades? Or do they put them in positions whereby they can be useful after their careers within the education sector, within the corporate sector? Because I believe they will probably participate in the World Games and they get a certificate or a diploma. Or if not, the local certificates they get, do they score? Thank you. Thank you.
I think, Susan, you can try and answer that question.
Yes, I'll answer, but again, I'll answer the Special Olympics perspective. Globally, there is no certification that accompanies the medal. But locally, what we've done as Special Olympics Kenya, okay, globally we also have a program called Athlete Leadership Program, where they are given skills that can improve their employability ability so that they can be able to get skills that they can use for employment. And we've had our older athletes getting jobs through the skills they've received through Special Olympics and through their sports. And for Kenya, we've gone further. In addition to providing that training, for example, in our own office, we have a job category that the entry point is athlete leader. Athlete leader is the training we are giving formally, but also informal, like the coach has picked one of the athletes and they know they're able to do that. So what maybe we should do is to campaign or to advocate for at a national level that whatever they participate in sports, whatever they achieve can be translated into something that can make them like join the job market. Yeah.
Winston, you have something?
Maybe what I would say, like the people we deal with, the only certificate they get, maybe when they are awarded, we put them into safe places just to show them that one time they did something. So we don't have, like the chair said, we don't have like a global thing that they are given to emphasize that they did something. But just what they achieve, we'll be able to motivate them to know that you can do this thing more and more and achieve a lot with this.